Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's conversation on the YouTube Creators Hub podcast. My name's Dusty Porter, the host of the show, as always. I'm joined today by Sonduren from the Cars with Sonduren YouTube channel. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him before we get going. So Sonduren is he's a recognized product marketing leader with 10 plus years of marketing experience in the computer software industry, specifically in B2B SaaS product marketing at high-growth technology companies at various stages. By night, though, he shares his hobby on all things cars through his YouTube channel, which we'll talk about today, Cars with Sonduren. Awarded YouTube's Creator on the Rise, which is super cool. I've never had anyone part of that program on the show, so we'll certainly touch on that. He's built a following of over 200,000 across YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram with content that educates and entertains. YouTube is what sparked his love for storytelling and pushed him to pivot his career from accounting and finance into marketing, which I told him off air is a lot more fun. Sonduren, how you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So give us the full rundown. I mean, you've been doing the YouTube thing now by night or on the side as a hobby for 6-7 years, like we talked about off air. Tell us kind of the origin story of the channel and kind of how it came to happen.
Yeah, it all really started with a passion. Look, I was a former corporate accountant in a different life, went through 9 years of education in accounting and finance. And, I thought that's what got me excited every day to go drive a business. And what I realized as I was going into it as a practitioner was, oh my God, I was doing a lot of manual work. I was not doing something that actually drove me to have fun and excitement every day. And I'm a firm believer, I tell everybody this, Dusty, that you got to love what you do in life. Life is super short. And so, I started dabbling while I was doing this. I was like not getting the value, the excitement that I wanted every day. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to go start making some videos on car stuff, topics, because my other hobby is on cars, and just start learning how to create content, learning about storytelling, learning about SEO, SEM. And so I was just kind of doing that on the side. And I started this. And as I was going throughout my career, I'm like, you know what? I get joy out of this. And so that's where I ended up taking a pivot and deciding, you know what, I want to get out of accounting and finance. I want to go into marketing for my own professional career. And I used actually my YouTube channel as a way to kind of trigger this career pivot for me. And, a great opportunity popped up at Microsoft Canada for me, where they took a chance on some accountant with a little bit of a YouTube channel to start and said, you know what, we're going to trust this guy with some stuff. And that's all she wrote, basically. And I've continued my professional career, which triggered off of my YouTube channel through product marketing and marketing over the last 10 years. And throughout that exact same amount of time, I've just been focusing on the YouTube channel, telling stories, tutorials, DIYs, and everything related to cars. And now honestly doing it for fun. And I've had significant growth over the last year and a half, for example, and it's been a great journey.
So do you still work for Microsoft?
No, so
Okay.
Microsoft was about 8 years ago now, but now I'm working at a Series B company called Airbase. We basically automate all procurement software.
Sure.
No matter what your company does in terms of spending money, reimbursing employees, paying vendors, we fully automate that process.
I just wanted to be clear to our listeners that you do not do YouTube full time. People oftentimes ask me, they say, why do you only have full-time creators? We're not that. I don't. I would say over half the people I've had on the show are people who do like you do. They do it on the side. It's a hobby. It's a side hustle. It's an income. So I love that, and we'll talk about all of that. Now, when you got into it and you decided to start the YouTube channel, was it pretty easy for you to decide on cars? Like, that's your passion? That was fairly easy?
Yeah, that was fairly easy. And I knew I wanted to go do something that I'm passionate about. And I knew at the same time, storytelling, I was passionate about that, but also cars. So I thought, you know what, here it goes. I'll make videos about cars. And I just started, I always look back at my first videos and I'm like, oh my God, those are horrible. But this is the same thing I actually learned in my YouTube career as an influencer and in my own professional career as a product marketer in a Series A to C startup. You can't let perfect inaction get in the way of just going out, putting something out there and continuously improving. That is the most important thing I've learned in my career as both a influencer and YouTuber and as a marketing professional.
That is such a good point, especially on YouTube. Perfection gets in the way of a lot of people hitting upload. And I
Yeah.
think that, 8 years ago, however long ago, when you uploaded that first video, I sorted your videos by oldest to newest. So I'm going back, and you've changed a lot. Your look has changed a lot from back then. It's amazing to see
Less gray hair.
go back. Yeah, I actually think you look like you're in a lot better shape now than you were then. So congratulations on that. That's fantastic.
Didn't hit in the
I
gym.
will say this: what has been the thing that has surprised you the most? Like, people who are outside this YouTube game, they don't understand a lot of the terminology and things we discuss. But now that you're in it and you're going on a decade being an influencer, what surprised you the most about being on YouTube?
What surprised me the most is really the ability for you to go ahead and understand that you need to constantly adapt. That's what surprised me the most, is that the fact that, especially over my journey, what I've learned is, and everyone's journey is different, right? Nobody just goes out. Some people will go out to become an influencer, they put out content and boom, they're instantly viral. That happens to some people. But a lot of people, and you don't really hear about this, Dusty, all of the work and effort they put in to get to that point where they hit this inflection point. And what I've learned over time at YouTube is this kind of dual strategy, which is one I've deployed in YouTube, is creating a host of evergreen content that is going to be forever relevant to help you gain a lot of the views and impressions longer term to help drive growth across your channel, in combination with all of the stuff that is more topical content topics, right? And I think what I've learned is having a consistent strategy to approach both channels of content is what has helped drive my success. And so I'd say, even the learnings over the last year and a half where I hit this inflection point was spending more time to actually think about what are the topical subjects in the content I need to create to actually go ahead and get those views. And the learning was actually, it's that topical content that can really set fire to kind of your total growth as an influencer.
How do you balance that? How do you, because you are a good storyteller. I watched a handful of your videos in preparation for this interview. You are a really good storyteller. So how do you balance the storytelling and entertainment side of it? Because you are talking about cars, you are talking about things you love, and the educational side, because some people think you have to be one or the other, but like you're building a community around cars and around that passion that you and others and your viewers have, but you're also doing educational stuff as well. How do you balance the two?
That's a great question. And I think different people have different approaches based on industry. I will say that. But what I will say is, for people looking for content related to cars, what I found is when people are looking for educational tutorial based content, they tend to go to YouTube. They tend to go to YouTube more so than short form content, social media platforms. Where people tend to go for news and information and more topical content topics, they tend to go on TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. And so you'd probably see over my content is you see a lot of the evergreen, longer form content, topical tutorials, how to do it, DIY stuff on YouTube, and more of the topical news, what's happening now content on TikTok, et cetera, and the short form content.
And so for you, it's a kind of a separation of platforms, right? Knowing what platform does what well. I agree. I oftentimes call it YouTube University because of how much people learn and go there and use it as a search engine to figure out. I know when I use this story all the time. When I had my first child, I used it to try to figure out how to put together a baby bed, how to do this, how to do that, things that I'm just not naturally good at. So I love to hear you say that. So would you recommend people who are trying to grow a YouTube channel venture out to these other platforms like TikTok and Instagram? Or would you recommend that they kind of not master, but really get a handle on YouTube first? Because oftentimes people spread themselves too thin. What would be your recommendation there of someone who's grown communities on multiple platforms?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the spreading yourself too thin thing is a real risk for creators and influencers that are doing it on the side. Like, I have a full-time dedicated job. You may have a family, kids, all of this stuff. And so it's important, number one, we said we're doing this as a hobby and it's a passion, to try to keep it like that as much as possible, right? So what I did was I focused primarily on YouTube for the first bit, right? And it was only in the last 2 years that I went into Instagram and TikTok and short form content. And I'd even argue I probably should have gotten to that point sooner, But what I did was I perfected a strategy on YouTube that got me to a point where I had a solid base of a follower base. Then went over, started creating content on TikTok and Instagram. And funny enough, Dusty, then YouTube obviously has been promoting shorts a lot more now. And I brought in all that content from Instagram and TikTok and now has a short audience. And it's interesting because now YouTube is dealing with two audiences. You have your audience that are typically watching your long form content, but then now YouTube is starting to get into that short social media game now, and you're getting a specific audience that is looking for content around that.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because it's one of the things I wanted to discuss with you. How are you balancing the content formats? Because you are one of the creators. Most people either focus on long form and live streaming, and then other creators build their channels on short form. I do believe that YouTube could do a better job. I'd love to hear your opinion. They could do a better job of separating the two because oftentimes, let's say a channel grows. I had a client of mine hired me for YouTube coaching, and he grew his channel over just from one viral YouTube short, but he wanted to do long form content. And so it was hard for him to pivot, and he had a kind of a long road ahead of him. So how do you balance the formats of vertical short form video and long form as someone who's done both very well?
Yeah, I think you got to figure out, like, when I go plan, like, I have a schedule, right, of like the content that I want to go film for long form, right? And because that can be more planned and tactful, because you can say, I want to create these DIY tutorials, I want to create this educational content. They're more evergreen on YouTube. Then I take an opportunity to say, okay, what of this content can I repurpose as well? You know, take one stone, hit two birds, whatever it is, and put into shorts, put into that 9:16 content format. So I think taking those opportunities to do that has helped. The other thing is you'll always have to know what type of content are you making and where will it best reach your audience. And I think for a lot of the topical stuff, people are on the short stuff. They want to get quick news bites, quick information. They have a short attention span, so you have to deliver that information, value, entertainment, whatever it is, as quickly as humanly possible. So it really depends on the type of content that you're creating. But I would say, even in the event when you're creating YouTube content, even if it's evergreen, see what you could slice out there that's more relevant and topical for the short form content.
And how are you repurposing the stuff you're doing for TikTok and Instagram over to YouTube? Is it a simple copy and paste, removing the watermark? This is a question I get asked all the time. Being someone myself who I haven't dabbled with vertical video very much. I do instructional tutorials on technology, which lends itself to more long form. Sometimes my videos can be upwards of 15, 20, 30 minutes, depending on the software that I'm covering. So for you, how are you doing it and juggling the different platforms? Like, how are you repurposing it for YouTube?
Yeah, great question. And I think I have this process down pat now. So
All right.
what I do, because primarily I'm using TikTok first. I start with TikTok because a lot of my content, you see my face and I put my face up front on a green screen and I record the content and I talk about the topics that are topical. And actually within TikTok, so you don't get that watermark, while you're creating your TikTok, you can save the video, even with the captions and everything else there. It won't have the actual watermarks. You can save the video with a watermark if you prefer that afterwards. But then I take that saved video, I post it on TikTok, I go to Instagram, because Instagram's limits a minute 30 seconds. So I will go ahead and make special cuts to cut the content down to a minute 30 with no watermark, post it on Instagram. Then on YouTube, Shorts is only a minute.
60
so then
seconds,
you consolidate further for YouTube, and then you post that out on YouTube.
What software? I hate to get technical, but like, are you doing this? Do you have this? I mean, being, you don't do this full time, so I assume you're doing it. What software? Give us the tech stack.
Yeah, so CapCuts. I love CapCut. I've been doing that. So primarily on mobile. So anything of that topical content, short form content. The reality is for me, and this is different for other creators I've spoken to, yes, you can get a team to go do that. But I found for me to get the content the way I like it, if I spend 15 minutes to create that piece of content, that's what I'm doing on the short form. Now on the evergreen, with the team that I have a video editor, somebody that helps make my thumbnails. They can help me slice those pieces up. I can give guidance to create those short form pieces of content that I will post across platform.
Talk about where you found your thumbnail guy and editor in the process kind of took place to find them, and then kind of people think it's like an automatic thing. You hire an editor
No.
and it works, right? I've tried 4 or 5 with the podcasting stuff. Honestly, I'll be honest with you, it was so bad. I had like 4 or 5 people I tried to edit the podcast. I know I was a perfectionist. I'm very particular about my audio editing. I ended up like launching my own like production side of things where I and a couple of other people are actually editing podcasts for a lot of upper tier podcast creators. So I went the other way. I did probably what I shouldn't have done, but I do this full time. You don't. So with that being the case, give us that process of hiring out.
Yeah, so this is definitely a journey, I think, for everybody.
Yes.
So I probably went through, oh my God, 20 video editors over my time, right? And spending significant amount of time, because you go with somebody, you want to invest, you want to make sure that you're both successful.
Right.
Absolutely. But then you get to a point, you're a perfectionist, I'm a perfectionist, you decide, you know what, this isn't going to work out. And you continue to look for and hunt for somebody that gets you to that level. This is especially important and natural, by the way, as you evolve your channel. Your standards, your expectations of production quality, the storytelling, you're going to set the bar higher and higher for yourself. And so sometimes that means, just like any growing business, the people that you have on your team may not be the right fit for where you are in your stage of the journey. So that's just on the video side. On the thumbnail side, probably 40, 50, 60 people. For me personally, this is what I've gone through. And I've looked for people across the board. Either people come to me, direct message me on Instagram, they find me and they say, let's do a trial. And I go do that. Or I find them on Fiverr, find them on Upwork. But that is a process. And so when you do find, though, that person that you really align with and you're really happy with the content and you have a great working partnership together, you stick with them. You make sure they're happy. You treat them like they are the hand that feeds you, because trust me, the amount of time you will spend looking for others, it takes so many cycles. So when you find somebody good, hold on to them really tight.
What are you, if you don't mind sharing, what are you averaging paying these people, like your thumbnail guy as well as your editor? What's your average rate that you're paying people?
Yeah, don't mind sharing at all. So on average, and I would say across the board of all of them that I was working with, probably in the round of $15 to $40 on a thumbnail. Now, the person that I have now is $40 per thumbnail. And yeah, some people will say that is expensive. 40 Canadian dollars, by the way. Our monopoly money is a little bit less than the US. Mm. And honestly, it's worth it for me. Right. And you will decide based on, what your monetization strategy looks like, how you monetize your channel, whether that's good for you or not. For me, I love his thumbnails. We work together so well. $40 works for me. That's on the thumbnail side. Now on the video side, this is totally dependent on the type of content, right? Because you're talking about, especially for my content, let's say a car review or something, you have drone footage, you have B-roll, you have talking headshots, you're slicing and dicing, you're importing in video and audio, and there's so much that goes into it, really. Some of those videos can be, from what I've seen on average, let's say a 15 to 20 minute video, $250 for like a really great high production quality like video. And some videos could be, there's a 7-minute video, maybe it's just me talking head in the studio with some B-roll, could be 80 to 100 Canadian dollars as an example. So again, it's pretty wide ranging because the type of content is so diverse out there that it's really hard to say, but those are some of the rates that I have paid.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so important for people to kind of hear kind of numbers so they can know what to compare it with when they're reaching out, trying to find people. I love that. I want to transition now into really quickly before we get into monetization and kind of monetization methods and kind of what you're doing. I want to ask you about your time management as a creator, because you are doing this as a side thing. This is not where you wake up in the morning and you sit down in the office and you can start thinking, okay, it's YouTube time. I can spend from 8 to 10 a.m. scripting. I know that sounds like a dream, right? But you're not doing that. You have a full-time gig. So how do you manage your time and still have personal relationships and still be a human?
Yeah, you know what? That's a great question. And sometimes I even struggle with finding that balance for me personally. I've just had a daughter. I'm married, and it is difficult. You're juggling. It's essentially because, look, you've invested into this. This becomes your baby. Mm-hmm. You are always thinking about it, but you really have to compartmentalize. So what I do personally, I'm lucky. I'm an early bird. I wake up nice and early in the morning, about 7 a.m. And I dedicate the moment I wake up, I shower, change, I'm ready. I know by the time my daughter wakes up and my wife is up, I got 30 minutes. I'm going to focus in the beginning 30 minutes before I even start my day job. I'm going to think about everything I need to do for my channel, whether it's create a quick short form content piece that's going to take me 15 minutes, start planning out a little bit of what I want to do long form, working with other either vendors, partners, etc. I'm working on affiliate partnerships, whatever it is. I do that in the morning. Perfect. Then by the time my night rolls around, my baby's asleep. It's 7:30 p.m. here. Then I have another 30 minutes to an hour, and you work out with your partner, whoever it is, how much time you have to go get that done. So really, yeah, it is a job, and you're actually always thinking about it. And sometimes I'm doing some stuff on the side as well throughout the day if I need to. But it is always on your mind, and it's always a balancing act. So, at the end of the day, uh, it is tough. And I think actually one of the learnings for myself is that, oh my God, like the thing that we always harken on, especially in the marketing world, is you got to really have focus.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say even handling these two things, it puts you on the brink, for me personally, on how much a single human can handle to be excellent at it. Because what you don't want to do is do too many things at once and you're not excellent at anything. That I think is going to be a recipe for failure. And so even right now too, that is tough. And I'm going to say that now.
Yeah, that's right. People try to do everything. They try to be everywhere, and I'm all about it. I'm all about when you can manage it to go and venture out into TikTok and start live streaming and do Instagram stuff. But listen, if you can only do one and YouTube is your thing and you're trying to grow a brand there, then get really good at that and mastering
Yeah.
and managing your time there. Now, you mentioned in that answer talking about partners, affiliate partners, and sponsorships, things like that. Let's break down your monetization methods, and the different baskets that you have. Can you give me kind of an overview, and then we'll dive deeper?
Absolutely. So let's talk about YouTube first. So the traditional monetization on YouTube is Google AdSense. So a good portion of my revenue comes from AdSense revenue, which is amazing. So that's channel number one. Channel number two is affiliate links and programs. So the biggest one that I have, especially because I do a lot of that evergreen content where I'm talking about how to fix your car, how to fix stone chips, how to patch your tire, whatever it is, how to do maintenance, linking all the products in the description to help my viewers make sure they can go and get that value that I'm promising them in the video. So that's two. So channel one, AdSense, two, Amazon affiliates. Now, three, interestingly enough, TikTok in Canada doesn't have a creator fund. Canadian TikTokers, for example, do not get paid out of a creator fund. So you need to monetize through affiliate partnerships. And so working with different brands to either put in sponsored posts, organic mentions in your content, etc. So you end up developing these affiliate partnerships that either pay you in one or two ways that I've negotiated these, with a monthly retainer that ties you to specific commitments in terms of what that promotion looks like,
Sure.
in addition to affiliate commissions if it's related to a product, or it could just be a direct affiliate commission program, and where you're compensated for a percentage of revenue for every sale that you make. And so it's important in that aspect, when it comes to cars, that you work with brands, number one, that you trust and love, that you've used personally, that you can actually vouch for, and so that it makes sense with your audience. For example, one partnership I have with TouchUp RX is about fixing paint chips on your car. And we have a great relationship. I have tons of long form content there. So how I'm monetizing that one kind of category of paint chip repair is I'm getting paid off the video views, getting paid off the revenue off each one of the sales of the kits, and it's all tracked through an affiliate program. And that's a great source of revenue. But then there's others on TikTok and Instagram where I'm getting paid on posts and sponsored stories, etc. So those are the main avenues of revenue that are driving kind of the channel growth.
Can you break down your numbers? I mean, I don't want you to give me exact numbers, but can you, if you don't mind, for example, say, well, the YouTube ad revenue each month, I average around, say, 2K or 1K a month or whatever that may be. Do you mind breaking that down so the listeners can understand? Because I want people to listen to this and hear, like, you're a hustler, man. Like, you're out there doing these things, working hard, building these relationships, and it doesn't happen overnight. But I want people to understand what it can be and what the numbers can be. So if you don't mind kind of breaking that down for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I can. I think transparency around this is great. The one thing I will say is I never went into this thinking this is where I'm going to be making money. You started off as a hobby, because if I went on that journey, I would be very disappointed for a long time. But right now, so about 200,000 followers, reach metrics around 30 million views over the last 90 days across all platforms, just for perspective. Google AdSense is, and I'm going to quote everything in Canadian dollars.
That's right.
Google AdSense is roughly paying on average about $2,800 to $3,000 a month. So that's one. Amazon affiliate links is paying about between $700 to $1,000 too. Affiliate partnerships, again, these are totally custom based on your relationships with brands. But TouchUp for example, is an affiliate partnership that's generating about $1,000 a month. Then I have other partnerships with other companies like Rates.ca and others, probably in total generating about $1,500 a month. So in total, looking at about $3,000, $1,000, about $5,500 a month Canadian in terms of like total revenues that are coming in today.
Man, that is awesome. Congratulations. That is not chump change for a lot of people that would pay all of their bills, and you still have a full-time job. And I think for you, you said you've had a lot of growth. We talked about this off air. A lot of your growth on your channel has happened in the past, wouldn't you say, maybe 12 to 18 months, whatever, 1 or 2 years. So for you, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like you're now figuring all this stuff out and how this stuff works, and you can really optimize and possibly double that revenue.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's the exciting part is like, okay, you go do this. And, I would say my growth was like this over the first 6 years, and it was great. And that's why you continue going and doing it. But at the same time, you're learning what will cause that inflection. And there were points throughout that journey, by the way, where I had inflections, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had these inflections, but then you learn, how do you capitalize on that and continue to make content around who your audience is and what they want? So I'm going to give a real life example. I'm making content about cars. I'm located in Canada. We have a serious issue with carjackings across the country right now. And so nobody was really speaking about it. I decided, you know what, I'm going to start speaking about it and be a real voice here and share my deep opinion on this and my completely transparent opinion on this. And that resonated deeply with the audience, right? And I think the other thing I learned on top of all this in terms of content creation is this is part of a reality, by the way, as a marketing professional, I've realized, but also as an influencer. And there's pros and cons to it. But we look at what's happening with the polarization of content and politics, and I don't want to get into all of that here, but what people actually go and engage with is with people that clearly show transparency and sharing their point of view. So that's what I think really like uncovered that, and it really makes people want to connect with you because they feel like, look, you don't have an agenda, you're just speaking your point of view on a topic. And yeah, that growth has happened over the last year and a half. And to be honest with you, I look at it, it's like, oh my God, all the things I just talked about, most of those revenue channels only developed in the last year and a half. Those affiliate partnerships, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But the Google AdSense and the Amazon affiliate links has always been there. It started at like $5 a day. Then it grew to like $1,000 a month, then $2,000 a month, now $3,000.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for breaking that down. You're really good at breaking stuff down into simple terms, and I feel like that's one of your strong suits. As we wind down the interview, I want to ask you this. What's something that you wish you would have known sooner? Now that you are 8-9 years into this, looking back, what do you think you could have done better? And if you would have known sooner, could have grown the channel even faster?
I wish I jumped on short form content more seriously sooner. So at first, I didn't really have a strategy around it. I thought, let me dabble with some things here and there to test it. And I probably should have tested it for longer and went deeper into it for longer. And even what I should have done was probably take some of that long form content and started dividing it up for YouTube and putting it in short form and in shorts earlier. So I guess really, I wish I acted faster on certain things. And the reason why I didn't, though, Dusty, I'll explain, is I didn't get let's say, the traction as much as I thought I would. So I thought, is this really working? And I was questioning it. And as a part-time creator, you only have so many resources and so much time every day to go ahead and test different things. And so I probably said in the beginning, I let off the gas without really giving it a full shot.
Yeah. I also think that we can live or die by our numbers and to our detriment. I still do this, and I've been on YouTube now going on 13 years. I'll look at the YouTube Studio app, and I'll look at the 48-hour metric of kind of what my channel's getting, and I know what my normal average is. And if it's above it, which it is quite a bit, I'm like, oh man, I'm doing really good. But then there'll be days, and honestly, a lot of times it's just seasonal, right? There'll be days or a couple of days where it'll dip down, and I'll be like, what's going on? Oh no, I better start putting my resume out, right? Like you make these real drastic things, and you think to yourself, well, if I don't get this metric or this number, I might as well not do it. But I think that the power as a creator, and you can speak on this if you want to before we close out, the power is in the consistency. The power is in how much persistence you have, because you may not be as good as creator A or B or C, but if you outlast them, by the time you're there, you are better than them, but your consistency is what got you there.
Absolutely. And I was looking for this book, Grit by Angela Duckworth. That is something that applies not just to YouTube, not just to being an influencer. You have to have perseverance and grit, and just to go through it. No, just like the stock market, like anything else, all the Cinderella stories you hear, they all have their ups and downs, all of them. And every single creator in your journey, Dusty, your journey, my journey, whoever's watching this video and podcast, their journey is going to be different and unique. The important part is, that that's part of the journey. Enjoy it. Don't stress too much about it. Have that perseverance to continue to march forward. And I promise you good things will happen.
I love that. That's powerful. Hey, man, let my audience know where they can get in touch with you. They've probably listened to this and thinking to themselves, I want to talk to that guy. I want to reach out to him. I want to figure out what he's got going on. So where can they touch base with you at?
Yeah, for sure. So you can either follow me if you love cars, at Cars with Sonduren on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. If you want to talk marketing, just search me Sonduren. There's not too many Sondurens out there in the world, so you can find me pretty quickly on my website or on LinkedIn, and you can connect with me there.
And all of the links to his YouTube channel and everything will be in the show notes of this episode. So if you're listening on mobile, you can scroll down and find it and check him out as you're listening to the show. Thank you, Sonduren, so much for being a guest on the podcast this week, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for having me.